and it undermines our ability to make agreements with other countries about what kinds of trade we want to see. I mean, there's no doubt trade is so important.
Trump is doing at this point, although I think the idea of it is laudable and credible.
We don't know how many times he can keep this instability going before hurting his own companies and country, and before people simply stop believing him.
The Mexican government will continue to take decisive action and prevent the auto manufacturing or agricultural industries from taking.
Trump thought his 25% tariff would have Mexico begging for mercy. Instead, President Sheinbaum just dropped a $604 million economic bomb targeting Republican farm states that voted for him. Guess who's crying now? This isn't just any counterpunch, it's a surgical strike aimed at corn, soybeans, and dairy from Trump country. While the orange turd is busy tweeting about being the best deal maker ever, Mexico is playing political chess and making him look like a complete amateur. And Canada joining the party? That's just the cherry on top of Trump's humiliation sundae. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Ever wonder how a country with a fraction of America's GDP just outsmarted the self-proclaimed king of deals? Mexico just showed us exactly how. When Trump threatened to slap a massive 25% tariff on all Mexican imports, he probably expected them to come crawling back, begging for mercy. Instead, President Claudia Sheinbaum pulled out a political chess move so clever it's making the orange turd look like he's playing checkers with missing pieces.
Modification short term because I didn't want to hurt the American. It would have hurt the American car companies if I did.
Mexico's response isn't some random temper tantrum. It's a calculated $604 million economic counterattack that targets Trump where it hurts most, right in his voter base. The Mexican government didn't just pick products out of a hat. They meticulously analyzed the 2020 election results to identify exactly which Trump-supporting states would feel maximum pain from their tariffs.
There is a roller coaster happening with regard to the tariffs. Those 25% tariffs that the president slapped on Canada and Mexico.
This is where the calm and collective approach works, because ultimately Donald Trump might become the boy who cried tariff.
See, Sheinbaum's team isn't playing around. They've specifically gone after corn exports from Iowa, where Trump won by 8 percentage points. They're hitting soybeans from Nebraska, which Trump carried by nearly 20 points. And they're targeting dairy products from Wisconsin, you know, that crucial swing state that could determine the entire election. What makes this move particularly brilliant is these aren't just random commodities. These agricultural products are quite literally the economic backbone of these rural communities.
And it undermines our ability to make agreements with other countries about what kinds of trade we want to see. I mean, there's no doubt trade is so important.
When a farmer in Iowa loses access to Mexico's corn market, that's not just a statistic. That's Jimmy's farm that's been in his family for generations suddenly facing bankruptcy. And Jimmy votes Republican. Mexican officials have essentially found a way to perform economic acupuncture.
Our situation. Tariffs are an attempt to stop the bleeding from the hemorrhaging of jobs in America for the last 33 years. So,
applying pressure to very specific points that cause maximum discomfort to Trump's political body. They're hitting products that will cause the most political damage while carefully avoiding hurting their own economy too badly.
Trump is doing at this point, although I think the idea of it is laudable and credible.
The timing of this couldn't possibly be worse for Donnie Diapers. With harvest season approaching, farmers are already taking out loans, buying equipment, and making financial commitments based on expected sales. Mexico happens to be America's second largest agricultural export market, and suddenly that market is threatening to close its doors. Whoops. Phone lines at Republican congressional offices are already lighting up with panicked calls from farmers wondering how they're supposed to survive this. Nothing makes voters rethink their choices quite like watching their livelihoods circle the drain because of a political stunt. Trump's famous America First policy is backfiring so spectacularly it's almost beautiful to watch.
We don't know how many times he can keep this instability going before hurting his own companies and country, and before people simply stop believing him.
President Donald Trump says tariffs in Canada Canada and Mexico could go up in the future. A 25% tariff on some goods from both countries is set.
The very voters who believed his promises about making better deals are now discovering that international trade is slightly more complicated than yelling "you're fired" at other countries. What's really interesting is how targeted these tariffs are. Mexico isn't just broadly hitting American products. They're specifically choosing goods from counties that voted overwhelmingly for Trump in 2020. It's like they've got electoral maps pinned to their wall with little red darts marking exactly where to strike.
Is how long will Americans have a stomach for the impacts of these tariffs before we start to see an erosion politically? There's a lot of uncertainty with the president's approach.
Often threatens tariffs. This time he went through with tariffs, and now we are learning that he is pulling back those tariffs. Let's start with Mexico.
To put this in perspective, Mexico is essentially playing the role of a sniper while Trump is running around with a grenade with the pin already pulled. One is precise and strategic, the other is likely to blow up in his own face.
The Mexican government will continue to take decisive action and prevent the auto manufacturing or agricultural industries from taking.
The psychological impact can't be understated either. Trump's whole brand is built on being this mythical deal maker who always wins. Now farmers in red states are watching as foreign countries run circles around him, strategically dismantling his support base product by product, state by state. Some agricultural associations are already distancing themselves from Trump's tariff threats. The American Farm Bureau, which typically leans conservative, has expressed serious concerns about the potential impact on rural communities. When the Farm Bureau is getting nervous, you know Trump's in trouble. And so, ladies and gentlemen, what we're witnessing is nothing short of a masterclass in international trade warfare. Trade experts are practically applauding Mexico's strategic genius in targeting American agriculture where it hurts most. They didn't just randomly pick products. They surgical striked corn and dairy production in places where MAGA hats outnumber reasonable haircuts.
Very chaotic tariff policy that the president is putting in place and pretending that that will have benefits for American workers and American communities across the country.
Meanwhile, our orange commander in tweet keeps posting victory declarations from his golden toilet, while farmers who voted for him are panic dialing Washington faster than teens with new crushes. Mexico knew exactly what they were doing.
And so adding tariffs to that levels the playing field. If you didn't, and the cheap imports were allowed to undercut U.S. business sales.
Well, amid fears of a broader trade war, President Donald Trump delayed some tariffs on Mexico and Canada this week. We're talking about items
creating political headaches in Republican strongholds that Trump can't ignore. In the end, Donnie Diapers just got schooled in the real art of the deal by the very countries he tried to push around. Turns out actual deal making isn't about screaming tremendous into microphones.
It's called the USCMA. How does something like that trade agreement work with these flip-flops with the tariff announcements that we get from Trump?
It's about knowing exactly where to apply pressure until your opponent cries uncle. Who's the stable genius now?